Hi, Bintu. Angie, I guess that's the right way. Hi, Robert Carey, 44. Nurse Marie, 66. Lisa France, hi, how are you? Misha, hi, Misha, how are you? Misha de Bono is a great friend of mine, an anchor here in California of the local news, great all-around woman and a mom, somebody I really love. So I saw her join in. She's at work, so I don't know. Hi, Misha. Hi, Party by Design. I don't know what parties you're doing, but I wish you well. I wish you well. Britney Nerpin, I think that's the right. Hi, your beautiful picture there, what I can see. I can see that you're beautiful. Queen PhD, I can see that you're beautiful too. All of these beautiful people joining in. cafmeyer, that Nikki girl, 33. All of you. Aaron Beham, John Walker, 6. I wish I could read everybody's name. Great vintage deals. Hi. Hi, I love great vintage deals. Miss Shine 24, how are you? I hope you're shining today. All of you. Thank you all. Hi from Brazil. Adonis, wow. Brazil, Monica Hayes, hi, how are you? Romino Concept Diaz, hi from Argentina. Rich Brusco, hi from New Jersey. I love New Jersey. So, hi everybody there. I'm Maria Shriver, as you know. Welcome to our conversations where we listen and we learn and where we come with open hearts and minds. And maybe even if we listen well enough, our minds and our hearts get changed. That's the goal of so many of these conversations. So I want to thank you so much for joining us. Today, I'm super excited because we're going to be speaking with Adam Foss. Now, Adam Foss is the founder and the executive director of this nonprofit called Prosecutor Impact. He's a former district attorney in the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office in Boston, Massachusetts. And we had a piece about Adam a couple of weeks ago in the Sunday paper. And it was such a big success. So many people clicked on it, wrote in about it, hearted it, liked it, commented on it. So we thought, well, that is a really great thing, number one. I was really happy about that. And I thought it would be a great conversation to continue. It's one thing to read about somebody and how they became a prosecutor and then how they went on to start a nonprofit because they believe so strongly that the prosecutor's office could be reformed, can be reimagined, is in need of reinvention. All of those are words. So Adam and I have been trying to find a time to get together, to talk. I wanted to listen to him. I wanted to learn from him. And I thought all of you would too. And I thought so many people liked reading about him that he'd be a great person to talk to on our Listen and Learn series here, we call together. Hi, Shelton Joseph. She says, Maria, I'm a widower. I'm sorry about that, and I hope you're doing okay, and hearts out to you. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation that we're going to have with Adam. There is Adam. I see him there. He's going to talk a little bit about him and about the great article that was about him. Waiting for Adam. It's called Defining Justice by Redefining the Role. Oh, there he is.
Hello,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm good. How are
I'm doing
you?
well. It's nice to see you, and it's nice to be here.
It's so nice to see you with all your Post-its behind
I
you.
know,
You look
that's
like my office.
exactly. This is my whiteboard.
How are you doing, Adam? How are you doing? How are we checking in? How is our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health?
I'm oddly resolute. This is the work that I've been doing for most of my career, and so while everything is super stressful and crazy, it actually is a time where I feel that there's amazing opportunity, and so I'm obviously hurt and sad and frustrated with the realities of the place that we're living, but I'm also really optimistic and excited and thankful to people like you who are using your platform and your time to have these harder conversations.
Well, thank you, Adam. I'm grateful to you for the work you're doing, have done, and I know the work you'll continue to do. And before you came on, I said that when we published the piece about you in the Sunday paper, it was one of the most successful pieces that we've had. And that just tells me that people are really interested about what you're doing. They're interested, obviously, in your life story, but they're interested in the concept of redefining the role of the prosecutor, which is why you started Prosecutor Impact. So tell us a little bit, Adam, for people who know a lot about the prosecutor, but they don't know how it can be reformed. Why do you believe it can be?
I think that the role of the prosecutor can be reformed because there is a disconnect between the reasons and the intentions that people go into the work and the way that we're measured in terms of doing a good job. And so you have a lot of people who go to law school and come out and they want to make communities safer. They want to serve victims. They want to hold people accountable. They want to build communities up. And all of those things, I think we can agree are good things, and all of that is shrouded in this idea that we have about fairness and justice. And those are all valuable things. Are ideals that we can all, I think, stand by. But the problem is that the ways that we are taught how to do that, trained how to do it, hired how to do it, but more importantly, how we're measured in our success are misaligned. And so we have used one tool to achieve all of those values, incarceration and all of the things that come with that. And we are measured internally by things that have nothing to do with whether or not people are safe. We have substituted winning for safety, and
So
along the
what
way
does
have.
winning look like to you? What does winning look like to you? What is winning?
Sure. I think winning is having a survivor of harm feel the trust that when he or she picks up the phone that they're going to be treated well when the police get there, and do not hesitate to make that call. And right now we know that 51% of people in the country will not even pick up the telephone when they're being harmed. That they come into the system and they are treated with humanity and dignity regardless of how cooperative or uncooperative they are, and that they receive the services that we know help survivors come out of the cycle of violence. And on the other end of that, to the extent that there's a person who is causing harm, that we address the fact that they have caused harm, but do so in a way that is humane and dignified so that we don't ruin that person's capacity to be a productive member of society forever.
So how do we do that? That's so beautifully said, right? What you said is you spoke on both sides of the coin. So how do we not ruin people's lives forever and hold people accountable and make those who are picking up the phone in need of help feel safe?
Sure. One thing is, I think, looking at it as there's actually no two sides. That what we know about a lot of people who are sitting in jails and prisons right now were victimized at one point in their life. And because of that
Yeah.
hesitation to pick up the telephone, or because of how they were treated when they came to our doorstep, they are either being re-victimized or creating more violence in their homes. And so breaking down these dichotomies that we have is a good start. Second is when we are onboarding, hiring, and training people who are going into these systems, we should be doing a lot more, given the power and discretion they have in terms of that process of hiring and training and onboarding. If you think about the people that we give really important and meaningful discretion to, we put that in their hands, doctors and soldiers and other folks who have that really like life or death moment in people's hands. They get an extreme amount of training and funding and research that
Yeah.
the criminal justice system just doesn't get. And then the last thing is changing the way that we measure success. Why are we counting the number of arrests when we should be counting like the safety of a community, and what does that look like? How do people in your community feel about you? And measure success by those things. How many people are staying out of the system? How many good stories are we having as opposed to bad?
So, I mean, that I love that you said just changing that there's a dichotomy there, changing that there because there aren't two sides, which is beautifully said. So, we've been hearing the last couple of weeks a lot about police reform, prison reform, but we don't hear a lot about prosecutor reform, which is what you're really advocating for. What difference does prosecutor reform make in the big picture?
To me, it is my life's work because it makes probably not all the difference, but a disproportionate amount of the difference. Police are doing what the police do. They arrest or they don't arrest. The criminal justice system exists next to the institution of police, and that the police bring people to our doorstep, and the person who decides whether or not they come into this structure that we have built, this structure that is for the most part doing a lot of damage to people, the person standing at the gate at the door is the prosecutor. And so and the person who is marshaling that person through the criminal justice system often is the district attorney's office. We center the case in the district attorney's office, and I have all of these actors that circle around it. But if we're talking about the lever of change, the most effective and efficient lever, to me, it is the prosecutor for all of those reasons.
That's why I wanted to have you on, because we're hearing so much about police reform, defund the police. And the piece on you really brought that home, that, you know, you can talk about police reform, but let's focus on the person that really is the critical linchpin really in this whole process. So if people want to be a part of the solution, if people are out there and they say, I want to be a part of the reform, how do I get involved in prosecutor reform?
Well, understand first that the prosecutor who's sitting in your jurisdiction, who's making all these decisions, is there because you chose for them to be there. And so we have a really a culture that doesn't really pay attention a lot to these local elections, that we get lost in the ether of the nonsense that's on the television around Washington, D.C. and Congress, obviously the president. But what really matters is who's your school board president, who is your district attorney, who's your local sheriff, who's your mayor, your county commissioners. That is the A to B way that citizens can get involved in at least putting the right person in place. But when that is done, what we cannot do is then fall asleep for the next 4 years and not pay attention to what is happening with our tax dollars. It is one of the only places where we put money into something and then look away and don't realize that we're actually not getting anything on our investment. If you think about the criminal justice system's failure rate, it's failing 70% of the time, and that people who are coming out of prison are returning in almost 70% of the time in 3 years. As taxpayers, as investors in the system, we should be demanding much more of our return on that investment, and that starts again with the prosecutor. But the prosecutor has no incentive to change if more people don't get involved in holding them accountable. Grassroots people, the people who are impacted by the criminal justice system, are always working on this issue. What we need are the people who are not impacted by the criminal justice system, who live in places of privilege where there's not police, to be as involved and understand that the reason that they're safe in their communities is not because the DA is doing a good job. They have to look over to the other community that they don't go to and say, is the DA doing a good job? And if not, I care about other human beings, and I want to do something about that.
So what your mission at Prosecutor Impact, they can donate money to you? Can they get involved with you there?
Of course. We are at www.prosecutorimpact.com. My Instagram handle is right here. But what's more important to understand is that safety, the medical field has realized that health has about 15% to do with the administration and receiving of medical services. It's my contention that safety has probably even a smaller fraction to do with prosecutors and police and jails, and has lots to do with housing and employment and education and transportation and infrastructure. And so while I'm happy to receive donations from people who are trying to support me in my work, because it is important, particularly right now, look at your local communities and understand that there are people who are trying to run small nonprofits that are tools in our communities that will provide us safety, and we don't think of them in the same way that we think about these institutions that get a predominant amount of the attention and funding.
Does it frustrate you to hear that people are really focused on thinking police reform is the single answer?
No, it does not. It doesn't frustrate me. I understand where it comes from, because we have these major explosions in the news, and what people understand about the criminal justice system is pretty perfunctory. Police, court, prison. These are
Yeah.
nuanced and new conversations for people. So it's not a frustration. What I hesitate about is that people think that if we just fix this problem, then everything else will go
Yeah.
away. And that it is about one interesting tension that I'm having in the movement is we see these police officers doing something that is awful, and we want the criminal justice system to act in the same way that it acts towards them. But at the same time, we want the criminal justice system to act differently towards other people. And until we can hold those truths and understand that we all have healing to do, that this is the time that we have to do it right now, and that if we get through the uncomfortable part of having those hard conversations and putting rules and funding in the right places, there's beauty on the other side that we can all enjoy.
But it's not really, I mean, funding is important, right? I understand that. But really, new mindset is equally, if not more important, isn't it? It's being able to say it's not as simple as the news tells me it is. It's not as simple as a placard in a protest march. It's a lot more layered. And so therefore the conversation is more complex than a lot of people want to engage in. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct. And it is what we've
So
seen.
how do we do that?
So I have two answers. One is every time that someone feels inspired to hold up a sign at a rally or to post something on Instagram, hold them accountable by saying exactly what you just said. That is not adequate. It is necessary, but it is not sufficient. And so challenging people the same way a personal trainer would or a professor would, are you going to do all of the other things that you need to do to improve your grade? The other thing, which is actually something that we can all be doing all the time, is the reason that we're struggling to have these conversations to figure this stuff out is because we wait until we're adults to do it. We shield our children from conversations around race or homophobia or violence, and we do it because we want to believe that our children are innocent and virtuous and can't handle it. But really what we've done is withheld from them the ability to learn anti-racism, the language of anti-racism, the language of empathy, the language of love, at a time when our brains are built to learn language. And so turning to our children, our young people, and in this example, a lovely teenager who connected us, and having these conversations is the way that we get ourselves out of this mess.
You said something interesting a couple of answers ago. You talked about this as a moment of healing, right? And some people have said to me, this is not a moment of healing. This is a moment of action. This is a moment for change. Don't talk to me about healing. That's, maybe a year or two out. This is rage meets action meets change. Are you saying, is it, there's healing and rage meets action meets change? It's holding it all.
I think it is. I don't see healing and action being two different things. In fact, I think that we rely too much on healing just happening because the environment around us improves. But healing work, restorative work, is hard. It is something that we don't have a model for. It's not something that we condition ourselves to do. And healing requires doing some deep and internal work that will not happen if we don't put effort in. And the issue with leaving it to rage and action is that you create polar points, and now we're just screaming at each other. We are not making progress. We might have a couple wins, but those wins aren't sustainable because we haven't done the hearts and minds work of healing each other to have these conversations to build a better place.
Are you beautifully said, by the way, and I like what you're saying is that they have to really go together. And I think that's such a great description of healing. People are like, I'm healed. And I have found in my own healing work, it's tough, it's dark, it's painful, right? And it's kind of ongoing. It's like the work of forgiveness, the work of healing. And it can go side by side with action, but it doesn't always go as quickly as you might hope.
No, the analogy is like if I tear a ligament in my leg, I can be mad and I can lay there and over time, something will happen to my leg as I lay there and I'm angry. But if I really want to get back on my feet and have the function back and maybe even a more functional leg, then I need to like do the physical therapy work that all of us would rather not do because it is hard, it hurts, it's time consuming. But that's the moment we're in right now, which is understanding that to get to this other side, we have to be honest with ourselves about a lot of things that we hang on to, our relationships with our families, our relationships with our history, our legacy, our children, and that's hard work that we don't have a model for. And so the action that we need to have now is creating the frameworks to do that so we can get through this uncomfortable part and enjoy what's on the other side.
So it's kind of healing action work.
Yes.
And so is there anything, Adam, that has surprised you in the last 3 weeks or month personally?
I don't know that I would call it a surprise, but I cannot miss this moment without recognizing how much has happened in the last 3 weeks in terms of people putting stakes in the ground and saying we're not going back to that place. Seeing the Minneapolis Police Department end their contract with the Minneapolis School Department, ending their contract with the Minneapolis Police Department, District Attorney in Atlanta prosecuting people for not for murdering people, but for putting their hands on these students who are out exercising their First Amendment right. Watching days and days of people out in the streets protesting where you know, before this period in time, you'd see that wave happen and then, you know, something would happen in the news cycle and it would go away. It is not surprising to me in the sense that it's completely out of the blue and I can't explain why it is happening, but it is something that has created an optimism in me that I perhaps have not allowed myself to have before.
So that's so beautiful. What a beautiful way to end our conversation. I want to refer people to the article about Adam by Molly Shriver in the Sunday paper. It was entitled Defining Justice by Redefining the Role of the Prosecutor. And it's a story about Adam's life, how he came to the work he has come to. We're going to put up, obviously you can follow him on Instagram. You can follow his work. You can join in his work. And we will keep this conversation going because many people here have said, thank you for this intelligent, beautiful conversation. And we're putting this up in our story. But I think that's really, we need to kind of dig into a more complex conversation, one that involves police reform, criminal justice reform, prosecutor reform, voting at the local level, undoing beliefs, healing combined with action, all of these things together, and then how that actually looks in real time. What does that look to the person sitting at home, like right now? If they could take one action at the end of this conversation, Adam, what would it be that you would find encouraging?
I think the thing that I ask people the most is there are a tremendous number of tools out here to help parents talk to their family members about racism, particularly with their children. I would direct everyone to go look at the work of Dr. Ibram Kendi and Rachel Cargill, and the folks who are really experienced at having these hard conversations, and begin to model that in all of our communities, in our homes, in our schools, in our criminal justice system, in our corporate boardrooms, and understand that there's a way to hold people accountable for harm without creating this us versus them mentality that Native people have been doing for centuries and generations, that we can have the opportunity to engage in now and just see what waits for us on the other side.
Beautiful. I love that. Here's the last comment for you, Adam. Keep up the wonderful, the fantastic beard and the wonderful work. I don't know.
This is the coronavirus beard. So.
Oh, okay. This is the coronavirus hair. So we're all in it together. But
for sure.
Once again, direct people to the article about Adam, to his extraordinary work. We'll have this up in the story. Adam Wars must be getting warm with his headphone on. Okay. So
I look like a helicopter pilot.
Yeah, there you go. But I think it's great advice to have these conversations with our kids at a very young age. My parents started us saying you have to be of service starting at like the age of 5. And everybody's always like shocked by that. But I think, you know, your kids are always open for these conversations. And I think you're so right there. The earlier we have them and the more we encourage our fellow human beings to vote at the local level, not just every 4 years, but at the local level. Know who these judges are, know who the prosecutors are, know who the school board people are, because they're only there because we either vote or don't vote. So I want
Exactly.
to thank you so much, Adam.
And I
Keep
want
up
to
the
thank
great
you.
work. We're
I,
gonna keep our conversation going because I want to learn more from you.
Please do. And I appreciate your parents so much. And I know that that's not a thing you say because I've had the opportunity to meet 2 of your brothers, and all 3 of you are just giving everything you can to make life better for other people. So I really appreciate you and your entire family.
Thank you. Now my brothers are going to say like, but he likes us better than he liked you. And
Yeah,
I'm going to say,
that's for you
no,
all.
Adam. Not
Sibling
us
rivalry.
versus them.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that's what Adam said, not us versus them.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Adam. God bless
Thank you.
and keep
All
up
right.
the good work.
Appreciate
Thank you. Adam, please check out the article on Adam. It was in the Sunday paper, Defining Justice by Redefining the Role of the Prosecutor. It was really popular. It's so beautifully done. It was done by my niece, Molly Shriver, who met Adam, was really impressed by Adam and wrote this piece for the Sunday paper. And it's a really inspiring piece about him, about his work, about his intention, about his belief in reimagining the system. And that's really what an architect of change is. Let me just say, it's someone who sees what is, imagines what can be, and then starts doing it. That's what moves humanity forward, is people who step out, step in, and use their voices. And we can all use our voices in conversations. We can use it by not using it and just listening, and following people like Adam on Instagram and wherever else they share their work. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Remember, Adam, check him out. His handle is @Adam John Foss. Okay, thanks so much. Have a great day.